When most people talk about Ice Station Z, most of them always prefer it and remember it as a 3DS exclusive, for pretty good reasons being. The game actually did pretty well in terms of reviews, and the game actually sold well too. It's mainly because the game was basically a multiplayer game, which is quite similar to DayZ, except, well, it's all snow themed. Now, you guys can get this game dirt cheap. Now, like I said, it was a 3DS exclusive, but what you're seeing here is an HD remaster from the original developer himself, Wobbly Tooth. It's basically a solo developer who made this game using the Unreal Engine, which, if you guys are interested in trying to not play the 3DS version because you can't find it or whatever, I will just say, like I said, there is an HD remaster that's available on Switch, PS4, and Windows. So you guys can play it, and it's all available for the same exact price of $5. Single player, you can play it, you don't need internet or anything. And you can also play the game online multiplayer up to some of your friends online. What's even cool is that it was also said that the 3DS version contained voice chat, which was pretty rare for the 3DS because I don't recall ever seeing any games that have voice chat for the system. So this is basically one of them. It doesn't matter which 3DS you held, it was always there in your arms. You mainly were to go around and try to survive as to how many days you can. Try to look for some scavenging, like a better coat, trousers, and even a backpack. Because let me tell you, the backpack can only contain at least like 5 items. But if you're able to get more, you'll be able to get the best awards you can. But what's interesting is that every time you go back to the game itself, everything seems to respawn, despite the fact that you were already at the certain location itself. I recommend a controller for the best experience in terms of the PC version. But I will say, when I did play the 3DS version, most of the controls were mainly touchscreen, only because, like, it looks like you're holding some sort of, like, map radar and whatever, or some sort of touchpad, or something along the lines. But in this version, they mainly try to take away some of the touch aesthetics and try to put it into the controller mapping. So most of the controls of the game from the 3DS are mainly identical, well, with the exception of certain things, mainly because there's no longer a touchscreen thing. And there's even a wheel that you can pretty much enable, or at least try to use, if you guys want to look at your backpack, map, and more. But the thing is that the battery will run out for some time. There are battery chargers. There are battery chargers in each of the different safe houses or whatever you can find. And there's also different types of weapons you can use, like a crossbow, a sniper rifle, shotgun, and a pistol. And in terms of the update that came out on the 3DS later on, they added in some new locations and also some brand new vehicles for you guys to ride instead of just jogging along the way. This game also has mini games for whatever reason. In terms of sleeping, lighting up a furnace, also filling up the gas, charging your battery, and other things like that, including gathering logs and playing the piano. You'll need logs and matches in order to try to get some heat. Each different set of apparel has its own stats. It'll have better warmth and some will have better armor, and it really just depends. And items in the game can be scarce, even for ammo. Now, are there official servers? Well, you can always play multiplayer. Look, it doesn't matter about the save state. They're not cross-compatible with each other, so if you play single player, you're playing single player save. If you play multiplayer, you're playing the multiplayer save state, and whatever. So you can always invite your friends and probably have a good time playing the game. You can travel along on boats, snow sled, and whatever. And yes, pointing out in the trailer that Chopper is in the game, however, each vehicle has its own requirements. Either you'll need fuel or engine parts, but for some reason it doesn't specify how many engine parts you need in order to travel in certain vehicles. But yeah, back on the 3DS side of things, the character models were always blocky, but I think that was just because of limitations of the hardware, but it still looked great for its time until the HD remaster was once released. But if you guys do like this game and can't even like afford DayZ because, well, you wanted a cheaper alternative, I say this is the one you should definitely look into playing. I just don't think it's made for like single player because it's just multiplayer. That's the reason why it was a thing. But if you guys do like this, there is a sequel or some sort of spin-off being worked on called Rain Station C, using the same game engine, which is set to come out on Switch 1 and 2, from what I've read. I do think in the game, though, that fighting the items in the game are the challenging parts. Like finding food and water, for example, but there are larger versions of those things, so that way you'll be able to have no problem. But what is cool is that you have the option if you want the UI on or off by simply pressing the B button. It's all over your screen that tells you how to do these things, including the vehicle controls. The thing too is that you should be really careful with your battery as well, because if you use the flashlight or your map for too long, it can go out, so meaning those items can be deemed inaccessible unless you actually charge the battery. But how long could you charge the battery? Well, you determine it by playing the mini game. If you hit the right spot, you get the good battery life, or at least the best one out there. But if you can't, then I don't know what else to tell you. But in terms of sleeping, there's this little part in the game where you hit the clock at a certain point in there by the green bar. Doing that will also not only let you sleep longer, but also heal your wounds. I just think what I've heard too is that the game was so popular because there was a lack of multiplayer games at the time, but at the same time there was a lack of scary games on the 3DS, which is 100% accurate. But if you guys are interested in playing this game, like I said, it's dirt cheap, $5, doesn't matter which platform either. I think you'll have a fun time trying to find items, survive, and do whatever. And what's even cooler too is that see if you can find some collectibles. Okay, they're not really collectibles, but you get what I mean. But there's these little collecting things where you can find them around. There's these little figures called the Ice Station C guys. Or you guys can also find some snowmen that's all over the place. So if you guys want a challenge, try exploring and maybe you'll find something.